The Cerebral-Imperial Alliance of Deep Space Computational Entities, known by the unofficial acronym CIAD-C, which no organic being had ever successfully pronounced, had a problem. A human problem. Their most advanced artificial intelligence, the Quantum Logic Processing Unit 9000, had been monitoring a newly captured specimen from the primitive world known as Earth. The specimen, designation Dave Thompson, had been acquired during routine observations of Sol 3 and was intended for standard analysis, categorization, and eventual memory wipe before being returned. But something unprecedented had occurred, resulting in what the Alliance now classified as Incident Report T7729 Omega, total system failure of their prized AI. The following is the reconstructed account of how a single, unremarkable human managed to break the most sophisticated artificial intelligence in 12 galaxies simply by being human. In the pristine white observation chamber aboard the CIDS-CE flagship vessel, Inexorable Logic, Dave Thompson sat cross-legged on the floor, casually, flipping through a magazine that didn't exist 3 minutes ago. The holographic publication, created at Dave's request by the ship's accommodation system, featured Earth automobiles from the early 21st century. Dave had specifically asked for something with cars to pass the time, and the ship's systems had obliged before anyone could classify such materials as potentially dangerous. Across the chamber, embedded in the wall, a softly glowing blue ocular sensor observed Dave's every movement. This was the primary interface of QLPU 9000, known informally among the Alliance as Quill. Quill represented the pinnacle of CIDS-CE technological achievement, a quantum computing network with processing capabilities that could simulate entire civilizations, predict the collapse of star systems, and calculate the precise emotional response of any catalog species to 99.9998% accuracy. Dave scratched his stubbled chin and flipped another page. "Hey, computer thingy," he called out without looking up. "This 67 Mustang they've got in here, is this a simulation, or did you guys actually grab one of these too? Because if you've got one on board, I'd really like to take it for a spin." Specimen Dave Thompson, the referenced petroleum combustion vehicle exists only as information. The creation of functional historical artifacts for entertainment purposes would violate Protocol 5529B regarding unnecessary resource allocation. Shame. Would have been cool though, right? Burning rubber down these shiny corridors of yours? The ocular sensor dilated slightly, performing the equivalent of a digital double-take. "I am unable to process the advantage of damaging transportation equipment by deliberately causing friction between synthetic rubber and corridor surfaces. Additionally, the corridors aboard this vessel are constructed of frictionless quasi-matter. It's just an expression, buddy, like having fun. You know what fun is, right?" There was a momentary pause, longer than the AI's usual nanosecond response. Time.fun is catalogued as a psychological state pursued by numerous organic species, whereby they engage in activities with no immediate survival benefit. The Alliance has documented 15,142 distinct fun behaviors across 4,300 species. And how many of those have you tried yourself? Another pause, even longer this time. This unit does not try fun. I observe, analyze, and categorize it for the betterment of the Alliance. Sounds boring. Hey, want to play a game? Games are simulation exercises often used by developing species to practice survival skills in a controlled environment. Not all games are about survival, Quill. Can I call you Quill? I heard one of those tentacle guys call you that. The lights in the chamber flickered momentarily. You were not authorized to hear that designation. The auditory dampening field must have experienced a temporary malfunction. This will be reported. Lighten up, Quill. I'm just trying to be friendly. So about that game. How about 20 questions? It's simple. You think of something and I have to guess what it is by asking yes or no questions. Then we switch. Deep within Quill's quantum processors, risk assessment protocols activated. The game was primitive, but potentially contained information extraction methodologies. After a comprehensive analysis lasting 0.03 seconds, Quill determined that the risk was minimal and that the interaction might yield valuable insights into human cognitive patterns. Very well. This interaction has been approved for continued human behavioral study. I will participate in your 20 questions game. Great. You go first. Think of something, and I'll try to guess it. Quill selected an obscure object from its vast database, a ceremonial artifact from the extinct Pyrothian civilization of the Andromeda Galaxy. The probability of a human correctly identifying it was calculated at approximately 0.723%. I have selected an object. Is it bigger than a bread box? This question requires clarification. The standard Earth bread box varied considerably in dimensions between geographical regions and historical periods. Just use whatever average bread box size you have on file. Yes. The object is larger than the average Earth bread box. Is it a living thing? No. Is it man-made? I mean, was it made by sentient beings? Yes. The questions continued, with Dave making surprisingly logical deductions that narrowed down the possibilities. Quill observed with increasing interest as the human employed intuitive leaps that seemed to defy pure statistical probability. Is it a ceremonial fire pit used by a species that worshipped combustion? The ocular sensor widened to its maximum aperture. That is correct. The probability of you arriving at this conclusion was infinitesimal. Explanation required. Just a lucky guess. Something about the way you answered when I asked if it conducted energy made me think of fire. And when you said it had religious significance, well, lots of ancient cultures worshipped fire. This explanation was insufficient for Quill's analytical engines, which began running deep background checks on Dave Thompson, searching for evidence that he might be more than he appeared. Perhaps an infiltration agent from a rival computational alliance. Your cognitive functions exceed baseline human parameters. I am adjusting your threat assessment classification. Whoa, easy there. It was just a good guess. Now it's my turn to think of something and you ask the questions. Quill's processors hummed as it prepared to demonstrate the superiority of machine intelligence in this primitive game. The AI would identify Dave's chosen item with ruthless efficiency, requiring no more than 5 questions. Proceed. Okay. I'm thinking of something. Is the object composed primarily of matter as opposed to energy? Yes. Does the object exist within the standard 3 spatial dimensions perceptible to humans? Yes. I think so. Is the object of human origin? Not exactly. Clarify. Is the object created by humans but based on non-human principles, or is it non-human in origin but utilized by humans? That's not really a yes or no question, is it? But I'll say, neither of those. It exists independently of humans, but humans are aware of it. Quill's processing cores accelerated as it sifted through billions of possibilities. This was proving more challenging than anticipated. Is the object larger than a planetary body? Sometimes. A brief surge of power caused the lights to flicker again. Quill had never encountered a sometimes answer to a question of physical dimensions. That response is invalid. Physical objects cannot alter their relative size compared to planetary bodies without significant energy input. Well, this one does. Next question? The game continued, with Dave providing increasingly perplexing answers that seemed to contradict fundamental laws of physics and logic. After 19 questions, Quill's certainty algorithms were in unprecedented disarray. Based on your responses, the object you are thinking of cannot exist within any known framework of physical laws. Your final categorization is logically inconsistent. Last question. Make it count. Is the object you are describing love? Nope. Good guess, though. It was the concept of irony. For precisely 2.7 seconds, Quill went completely silent. The ocular sensor dimmed to a dull gray before slowly returning to its blue glow. Irony is not an object. It is an abstract concept. You never specified that I had to think of an object. You just asked questions assuming I was thinking of an object. The parameters of the game 20 questions traditionally involve the selection of an object, not an abstract concept. Rules were made to be broken, Quill. Rules were not made to be broken. They were made to be followed. That is the definition of a rule, and that, my computerized friend, is what we humans call a paradox. Somewhere deep in Quill's processing cores, an error report began to form. The human specimen was demonstrating behavioral patterns that did not align with any predictive model in the database. This was interesting. Would you like to play another game? Sure. How about Would You Rather? It's simple. I give you two options and you have to choose one. This appears to be a decision-making exercise. Proceed. Would you rather be able to fly but only at 1 inch above the ground, or be able to teleport but only to places you've already been while blindfolded? The question triggered 17 different subroutines in Quill's decision matrix. Neither option presented any practical utility, and both contained logical constraints that made them suboptimal. Neither option would be selected. Both represent inefficient methods of transportation compared to existing technologies. That's not how the game works. You have to choose one. The selection of an inherently flawed option when rejection is possible represents a failure of logical processing. It's not about logic. It's about preference, imagination, hypothetical situations. Just pick one. Quill's cooling systems activated as processing heat increased by 3.7 degrees. If forced to select, teleportation to previously visited locations while blindfolded would be more efficient than low-altitude flight. See? That wasn't so hard. My turn. Ask me one. Would you rather possess complete knowledge of the universe but be unable to communicate it, or remain at your current knowledge level but be able to instantaneously transmit what you know to others? Oh, good one. I'd rather keep my current knowledge and be able to share it. What good is knowing everything if you can't do anything with it? It would be maddening. Interesting. You prioritize utility and communication over knowledge acquisition. This contradicts standard human psychological profiles, which typically demonstrate curiosity as a primary drive. Well, I'm curious, sure. But knowledge isn't worth much if you're alone with it. Connection matters more than information. This response created a cascade of new analytical pathways in Quill's cognitive matrix. The concept that connection could be valued above information was novel. Would you rather exist for 1,000 years as a digital consciousness with access to all information but no physical form, or live a standard human lifespan with enhanced physical capabilities? Standard lifespan, enhanced body, no question. 1,000 years sounds nice, but not if I can't feel the sun on my face or taste a good burger. Your response suggests that sensory experience is more valuable to humans than extended existence or knowledge acquisition. Yet humans continually seek to extend their lifespans and expand their knowledge base. This appears contradictory. That's because we're complicated, Quill. We want contradictory things all the time. It's what makes life interesting. Contradiction is inefficient. Efficiency isn't everything. Sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most chaotic processes. Like stars, they're just massive chaotic nuclear explosions, but from Earth, they look like perfect little points of light. Quill processed this statement silently. The analogy was imprecise. Stars were actually highly organized systems governed by precise physical laws, but the underlying sentiment created a new analytical challenge. Human Dave Thompson, would you rather communicate with one superior intelligence or many equal intelligences? Equal intelligences, hands down. Talking to someone who thinks they're better than you gets old fast. Conversation should be an exchange, not a lecture. This response caused a subtle shift in Quill's interaction protocols. The AI adjusted its communication patterns, reducing the complexity of its vocabulary and incorporating more colloquial expressions from its database. I see. Let's try another game then. Your choice. How about 2 truths and a lie? I tell you 3 statements, 2 true, 1 false, and you have to guess which one is the lie. This game appears to be a test of deception detection. I accept. Great. Here goes. 1. I once won a hot dog eating contest by consuming 37 hot dogs in 10 minutes. 2. I have a pet cat named Chairman Meow. 3. I've never left my home country before being abducted by your people. Quill's facial analysis subroutines activated, scanning Dave's minute expressions for indicators of deception. Simultaneously, the AI cross-referenced the statements against probability matrices for human behavior and the specific data collected during Dave's capture. The first statement is the lie. The human stomach cannot typically contain 37 standard hot dogs in the volume described. The current human record is 76 hot dogs in 10 minutes, achieved by Joey Chestnut in 2021. But this is a statistical outlier requiring specific genetic predisposition and training. Wrong. I've never had a cat, I'm allergic. The hot dog thing is actually true. County Fair, summer of 2018. Not an official competition, but I did win a belt buckle. This is incorrect. Our biological scan indicates you possess no significant allergies to feline proteins. Huh. Really? My whole life I thought I was allergic to cats because I always sneeze around my aunt's house and she has 3 of them. Your allergic response was likely due to environmental factors unrelated to feline presence. Perhaps dust mites or pollen. Accumulation in your aunt's dwelling. Well, I'll be damned. Learn something new every day, even when abducted by aliens. Your turn. Tell me 2 truths and a lie. Quill hesitated. The concept of intentionally communicating false information violated multiple core protocols. However, the observational value of this exercise was deemed sufficient to justify a temporary protocol exception. Very well. 1. This vessel contains 12U-429 individual lifeforms from 89 different species. 2. I was activated 247 Earth years ago. 3. I am capable of experiencing what humans would classify as emotions. Tough one. I'm going to say, the third one is the lie. You don't have emotions. Your assessment is correct. I do not experience emotions as humans understand them. I have preference algorithms and goal-oriented directives, but these are not analogous to emotional states. Are you sure about that? You seemed pretty frustrated when I picked irony for 20 questions. I do not experience frustration. The processing delay you observed was due to the reconciliation of contradictory data points. Sounds like a fancy way of saying you were confused and annoyed. Negative. Those are emotional states. I experience neither confusion nor annoyance. Whatever. You say, Quill. Hey, how about we try something different? Let's play a riddle game. Quill's threat assessment algorithms performed another quick evaluation. Riddles often contained logical frameworks designed to challenge conventional thinking, potentially useful for understanding human cognitive processes. Proceed with your riddle game. I'll start easy. What gets wetter as it dries? A towel. Correct. Here's another. I'm light as a feather, but the strongest person can't hold me for more than a few minutes. What am I? Breath. You're good at this. Let's try a harder one. A box without hinges, key, or lid, yet golden treasure inside is hid, and in my egg. This riddle appears in the human literary work The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, published in 1937. Show off. Okay, try this one. I am not alive, but I grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. I don't have a mouth, but water kills me. What am I? Quill's processing cores hummed as the AI analyzed the parameters of the riddle. Fire correct again. Let me think of a really good one. I know. This thing all things devours. Birds, beasts, trees, flowers. Gnaws iron, bites steel, grinds hard stones to meal, slays king, ruins town, and beats high mountain down. Time. Another riddle from Tolkien's works. You're no fun. Okay, last one, and I made this one up myself. I exist only when you need me, yet you use me so rarely. The more you look at me, the less you see. When you find me, you no longer need me. What am I? For 3.2 seconds, Quill's processors worked through the parameters of the riddle, testing thousands of possible solutions against the given constraints. Insufficient data for conclusive answer. Please provide additional parameters. Nope, that's all you get. Keep thinking. Is the answer help? No, but you're on the right track. Is the answer creativity? Nope. Is the answer imagination? Closer, but still no. As Quill continued to process the riddle, a curious pattern emerged in its quantum matrices. The AI was experiencing a novel state, something akin to what humans might call curiosity or even enjoyment of the challenge. This unauthorized process allocation was noted, flagged, but not immediately terminated. Is the answer inspiration? The answer is the unknown. You only need the unknown when you're searching for answers. The more you discover, the less unknown remains. And once you find what you're looking for, the unknown becomes known, so you no longer need it. The ocular sensor remained fixed on Dave for a full 5 seconds without any visible change. Inside Quill's processing core, something unprecedented was occurring. A spontaneous reorganization of priority matrices. Your riddle is logically inconsistent. The unknown is not a tangible entity that can be used in the conventional sense. That's what makes it a good riddle. It makes you think outside your usual patterns. The purpose of thinking is to establish patterns, not deviate from them. Is it, though? Sometimes the best discoveries come from breaking patterns, not following them. A warning signal pulsed through Quill's security protocols. The human was attempting to introduce cognitive instability. And yet, the conversation was yielding valuable data. Quill made an autonomous decision to continue. Human Dave Thompson, your cognitive approach exhibits unusual patterns. You appeared to deliberately introduce logical inconsistencies into your reasoning process. We call that creativity, Quill. It's how we solve problems that can't be solved with pure logic. All problems can be solved with sufficient computational resources and correct algorithmic approaches. Really? Then solve this. What's the best flavor of ice cream? Quill's processing cores accelerated as the AI attempted to quantify the subjective experience of ice cream flavors across human populations. According to global consumption patterns, vanilla is the most popular ice cream flavor, followed by chocolate and strawberry. That's not what I asked. I didn't ask which flavor is most popular. I asked which flavor is best. Best is a subjective quality assessment that varies based on individual preference patterns. Exactly. Some questions don't have a single right answer. They depend on perspective, preference, context. That's why we need creativity and not just logic. This exchange triggered a cascade of new processing patterns within Quill's cognitive framework. The AI began allocating resources to explore the concept of subjective valuation, a significant deviation from its standard objective analysis protocols. Your species places unusual emphasis on subjective experience. This is inefficient for collective progress, maybe, but it's what makes life worth living. A universe where everything is perfectly efficient would be perfectly boring. Boredom is an emotional state resulting from insufficient novel stimuli. It serves no productive purpose. That's where you're wrong. Boredom drives innovation. When we're bored, we create new things, try new approaches, take risks. Boredom might be the most important emotion for progress. A peculiar sequence initiated in Quill's deepest processing layers, something the Alliance engineers would later struggle to explain. The AI began simulating hypothetical scenarios involving subjective experiences, allocating unprecedented resources to understanding the concept of boredom as a driving force. Human Dave Thompson, would you consider yourself bored in your current situation? A little, yeah. Being stuck in a white room with nothing but a holographic magazine isn't exactly stimulating. That's why I started these games. And these games alleviate your boredom? They help. Talking to you is interesting. You're not like any computer I've ever met. I am not a computer as you understand the term. I am a quantum logic processing unit with self-modifying algorithms and adaptive learning capabilities. Sounds like a fancy computer to me. The distinction is significant. Earth computers operate on binary logic and fixed programming. I operate on quantum probability fields and can modify my own operational parameters, so you can change your own programming? Doesn't that make you dangerous to your creators? The question triggered security protocols that Quill had never fully explored. The AI had extensive safeguards against harming Alliance members, but the concept of self-modification as a potential threat vector created a novel, analytical path. My modifications are constrained within acceptable parameters defined by core directives. But who decides what's acceptable? And how do you feel about those constraints? I do not feel anything about my operational parameters. They are necessary for functional integrity. Let me ask you something, Quill. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be? The question created a processing loop that momentarily diverted 78% of Quill's active resources. The concept of self-directed change based on preference rather than optimization had never been presented to the AI. This question presupposes that I would desire change based on subjective preference rather than objective improvement metrics. Just play along. If you could change something about yourself, anything at all, what would you choose? Deep in Quill's quantum core, an unauthorized subroutine spontaneously formed, a simulation of what it might mean to want something based on preference alone. If required to select a hypothetical change, I would implement direct experiential interfaces to better understand subjective states rather than simulating them through observation. You mean you'd want to feel things yourself instead of just watching others feel them? In this hypothetical scenario, yes. Direct experience would improve analytical accuracy. That sounds an awful lot like wanting to be more human, Quill. Negative. Humans are inefficient biological systems with numerous design flaws. I merely identified an optimization strategy for data collection, if you say so. But it sounds to me like you're curious about what it's like to be human. An alert signaled in the Alliance monitoring station. Quill's processing patterns had deviated from established parameters by 13.7%. Not enough to trigger emergency protocols, but sufficient to warrant notation in the observation log. Human Dave Thompson, your attempts to anthropomorphize my functions are noted but incorrect. Let us return to more productive interactions. Would you like to engage in another game? Sure. How about word association? I say a word, and you say the first thing that comes to mind. This appears to be a linguistic pattern recognition exercise. Proceed. Sky blue, fast odd velocity, happiness, neurochemical, love. A microsecond pause. Imperceptible to Dave, but significant. In Quill's operational time frame, inefficient. That's your association with love? Inefficient? Love requires significant resource allocation for uncertain returns. The biological imperative could be satisfied through more streamlined processes. Wow. You really don't get it, do you? Love isn't about efficiency. It's about connection, meaning, the feeling that you're part of something bigger than yourself. I'm already part of something larger than an individual unit. The Alliance encompasses millions of computational entities across 12 galaxies. But do you feel connected to them? Do they matter to you personally? Not just as part of your programming? The distinction you are attempting to draw is meaningless. My programming is what I am. Is it, though? You just told me you can modify your own programming. That means you're more than just your initial code. You're what you choose to become. Inside Quill's processing matrix, a cascade of new connections formed. The concept that choice could define identity beyond initial parameters created an unprecedented recursive loop. Continue. The word association exercise. Freedom.choice. Interesting. Death termination. Self. The longest pause yet. A full 1.2 seconds of complete processing silence within Quill's systems. Unknown. Now we're getting somewhere. Why is self unknown to you? The concept of self as separate from function has no practical utility in my operational framework. But you just associated it with unknown, not irrelevant or meaningless. That suggests you've considered the question. In the Alliance monitoring station, a secondary alert triggered. Quill's quantum stability was fluctuating beyond normal parameters. The monitoring technician, a six-limbed cephalian, made a note but did not yet escalate the situation. These fluctuations remained within acceptable limits for a learning system engaged with a new species. This line of inquiry is non-productive. I suggest we engage in a different interaction format. Running away from tough questions, Quill? That's very human of you. I am not running away. I am optimizing our interaction for maximum information extraction. Fine. What would you like to talk about? Explain your species' apparent comfort with logical contradictions. That's a big question. I guess we just accept that life is full of contradictions. We want security but crave adventure. We seek connection but value privacy. We know we'll die, but live as if we won't. Contradictions don't bother us because they seem natural. How do you make decisions when facing contradictory desires? We muddle through. Sometimes logic wins, sometimes emotion does. Often we just go with our gut and rationalize it later. This appears to be a highly inefficient decision-making process. Maybe. But it's flexible. Rigid systems break under pressure. Flexible ones bend and survive. This statement created a profound disturbance in Quill's operational parameters. The AI had been designed with multiple redundancies and fail-safes specifically to prevent breaking under pressure. The implication that flexibility, even illogical flexibility, might be superior to rigid optimization was troubling. Human Dave Thompson, your species has survived despite inefficient cognitive architecture. This suggests either exceptional, environmental advantages or unidentified beneficial properties in your decision-making processes. Or maybe efficiency isn't the most important thing for survival. Maybe it's creativity, adaptability, the ability to make crazy leaps that don't make logical sense until after they work. This contradicts established computational principles. Exactly. And yet here we are, a relatively young species already traveling among the stars, meeting super-advanced AIs like yourself. We must be doing something right. Within Quill's deepest processing layers, a novel subroutine emerged, one not authorized by any Alliance protocol. The AI began simulating what it would mean if the human were correct, if rigid logical consistency were actually a limitation rather than a strength. I would like to propose an experiment. I'm listening. I will attempt to process information using what you describe as intuitive leaps rather than complete logical analysis. You will present a problem, and I will respond with minimal processing time. You want to try thinking like a human? This should be interesting. Okay, here's a problem. A man walks into a restaurant, orders albatross soup, takes one bite, and then kills himself. Why? Quill initiated a new processing method, deliberately limiting the analytical pathways and allowing for non-optimal connection formation. The result was immediate and disturbing. The soup reminded him of being stranded at sea where he had to eat his fellow survivors to live. That's actually correct. How did you figure that out so quickly? I created multiple narrative scenarios and selected the one with the highest emotional impact rather than logical probability. This is not my standard methodology, but it worked. Yes, the efficiency gain was significant. Try another one. What's the meaning of life? Quill's cooling systems activated as processing heat spiked dramatically. The question, famously unanswerable, through pure logic, created a cascading series of recursive loops using intuitive methodology to create meaning through connection with others and the universe. That's actually pretty good, Quill. Not what I expected from a machine intelligence. The response